You're listening to Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman on the Land of Israel Network.
Hello and welcome to Inside Israel Today, broadcasting from Jerusalem here on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com, where we are 50 days left before our exciting election on September 17th. And what a difference a week makes. When we sat here last week, we didn't know exactly what was going to happen with the parties on the left. We didn't know exactly what was going to happen on the parties on the right. And now we know. On the left, they have joined together, not Labor, not Blue and White, but the Meretz party joined together with Ehud Barak's party and with Stav Shafir, who has defected from the Labor Party. They're still trying to woo former Labor people to join the list. Tzipi Livni is still out there as a free agent, though unlikely to come. And we have a new party because of it called the Democratic Union, which I'm told is also the name of a party in England that is an ally of the Conservative Party and involved in Brexit. But here we have an Israeli Democratic Union. And on the right, there is a bond as of yesterday between the New Right Party of Naftali Bennett and Ayelet Shaked and Naftali Bennett, I'll get used to that, and what was called the Union of Right-Wing Parties. That was a block of the Bayit Yehudi Party, formerly headed by Naftali Bennett, currently headed by Rabbi Rafi Peretz, and the National Union/Tekuma Party, led by Bezalel Smotrich, formerly led by Uri Ariel. Now, that Union of Right-Wing Parties was a terrible name in the last election because it had 5 words in it. Union of Right-Wing Parties. This was abbreviated in the Jerusalem Post as URP, abbreviated in another media outlet that shall remain nameless as URWP. Why? That was too long and annoying. You could not fit Union of Right-Wing Parties in any headline. And so yesterday, when they were forming their bloc, I said to Jeremy Salton, former host on Voice of Israel and who came on my show a couple of weeks ago, I don't care who joins your bloc. I don't care what your policies are, but please limit your name to only 2 words. And sure enough, they have become the United Right, ladies and gentlemen. Only 2 words. I must say that today's Jerusalem Post has it on the cover. It is referred to as the United Right with a capital T. I will do my best to make sure that never happens again. They will not have a 3rd word. They do not get a capital T. They do in the, like the Jerusalem Post, with all due respect. 2 words will do. So United Right, Democratic Union, 2 words that sort of kind of fit in a headline. And can be easier for people to remember. If I'm a voter, and I am, then I've got like whiplash going on because how am I supposed to remember all these names? All the names have changed. All the blocks are running together. They're all playing a game here of joining up, what's called technical blocks that will break up after the election. Everybody's just hooking up temporarily and building blocks and calling themselves new names. Ahead of the last election, you had to get used to the Israel Resilience Party that was formed by Benny Gantz, and then a few weeks later it became Blue and White, and nobody remembers Israel Resilience anymore. And then you had Union of Right-Wing Parties that has already been forgotten. It's been a whole day. We forget that they exist. Let's hope we forget that someone decided to give themselves a name with 5 words. And now you have United Right, Democratic Union. The 4 Arab parties joined yesterday after failing to join ahead of the April election. They joined yesterday into one party called Joint List. So that's another block that's been formed. It's all about blocks. before the next election, don't be surprised if United Torah Judaism, the Ashkenazi ultra-Orthodox party, which itself is a block of two different Ashkenazi ultra-Orthodox parties, ends up joining with Shas, the Sephardi ultra-Orthodox party, into one ultra-Orthodox party. Labor joined with Gesher, a socioeconomic party led by Orly Levy Abekassis, and they have not said finally what their name is going to be in the election, though it's looking like it will be Labor Gesher, unless they come up with some fancy name ahead of the deadline to submit lists, which is on Thursday night. It is coming up rather quickly. Now, there might also be another party formed on the right. There are three parties further to the right of the right-wing parties that merged yesterday, or maybe are they? Well, Otzma Yehudit of Itamar Ben-Gvir is definitely to the right of the United Right. The Noam party of the rabbis of the Har Hamor Yeshiva are definitely to the right. But what is Zehut of Moshe Feiglin? It was at one point to the right, and it became more to the left, or not really definable. Moshe Feiglin, ahead of the last election, said, I care about the blocks as much as I care about your grandmother, which is an insult in Hebrew, apparently. And he's still trying to figure out what he is. He's got very little time to do it. There will be negotiations between now and Thursday's deadline to join that United Right for all three of those parties, but if they don't, they might end up running together on this technical block, which would be very strange because Moshe Feiglin's party talks about more religious freedom, and the Otzma Yehudit party talks about more Jewish-like domination. Those don't really go together, but blocks are what it's all about. You got to pass that 3.25% threshold. Naftali Bennett told me last week that it's about one of those barriers that you got to cross on a street, and in order to get over that barrier, sometimes you put a lot of people there on the bus, and then afterward people get off the bus and they all go their separate ways. Is that like what happens with people at a border in Mexico? I don't know. So that is what has been happening. And meanwhile, people have to remember and get used to these names ahead of the election, September 17th. There's not much time. This, in the world of advertising, is referred to as rebranding. Rebranding is a process that usually takes 2 years if done effectively. McDonald's went through this period of rebranding where they tried to make themselves healthy and not just be this place known for unhealthy fast food. It was a struggle uphill. They said that it's successful. I don't live in America, so I'm probably not the best person to ask about it. I only eat McDonald's here where it's kosher. It's not healthy. But if you Google successful examples of rebranding in America, then McDonald's does come up. So I figure it must have worked. I know that Dunkin' Donuts has gone through some rebranding to be less about donuts and be more about coffee, I guess. And there are all kinds of examples of companies that have gone through this process. I remember a few years ago in Israel, the Nest tea that we had been drinking split into two kinds of tea, where Nest tea became a different kind of tea that tasted differently, and Nest tea that became a tea spelled F-U-Z-E, which some people told me spelled fuse, but for me and my children, it will always be fuzzy tea. Now, I think that the people involved in choosing that name and rebranding might not have chosen that name had they known that my children and I would call it fuzzy tea. But they did it, and now if you look on the shelves over here in Jerusalem, you will still find Nest tea, and you will still find that fuzzy tea, and they do not taste the same. And so that rebranding is a little questionable. And so I can only hope for the nice folks that formed the United Right and were nice enough to have only two words in their name, and who formed the Democratic Union and who formed the Zionist Union. That was the last election, sorry, they're gone, who formed Blue and White, and who might be forming a right-wing party over the next couple of days, that they succeed in putting out their posters and their internet ads and everything to get their names through their heads of the people when they go to vote on September 17th. But in the end, there's also one additional factor, which is that when you go to vote over here, you vote for letters. On the pieces of paper that we put in the envelopes, there are code names in addition to the names of the parties. The names of the parties are written rather small. The code names are written rather big. They are up to 3 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And so Likud here is Machal Mem Chet Lamed, which stands for Mifleget Chirut Leumit, which is the former name of Likud that no longer exists. And there is Emet, which is truth, which is the Labor Party. And so it's been around, associated with labor for decades, so people are quite used to that. The parties on the right have run under the Bet that was connected to the Bayit Yehudi, before that the National Religious Party, and the Tet that came from the original Moledet Party that joined Tekuma to form the National Union that's now part of the United Right after being part of the Union of Right-Wing Parties before. And so now they are Tet Bet together, which makes the word Tov, which is good and very nice. So now people have to not actually remember the names of the parties that are all fresh and new. They can just remember the initials. So with all due respect to the people who are looking for the words Democratic Union on that piece of paper, it says Meretz. There were Meretz before. And even though Stav is there and even though Ehud Barak is there, they're Meretz. And Gesher will not be the big letters on that piece of paper. It'll say Emet, just like Labor's been for decades. And that's what people really have to get used to in the end, that in the end, with all the rebranding that goes on, with all the different names that people have to try to memorize between now and September 17th, the more things change, the more they end up staying the same. Ahead of the last election in 2015, the Labour Party joined together with Tzipi Livni, and with great fanfare they announced their name in Hebrew, Hamachaneh HaTzioni, which translates in Hebrew into the Zionist camp. Ahead of when they chose their name, they did focus groups and studies to find out whether Arabs will still vote for them, even though they have Zionism in their name. And they decided to go with it anyway. And it sounded nice in Hebrew. They were reclaiming Zionism for the Israeli left that founded the state. They were saying that left-wing people can be patriotic, and that's an important message. But then afterward, after the event ended, I came up to Herzog, the leader at the time of the Labour Party, and to Tzipi, and I said, "What are you naming your party in English?" And they said, "You know what? We've given it absolutely no thought whatsoever." And these are worldly people, ladies and gentlemen. They're not people that don't think about the wider world. They asked me, what should I name it? I started giving them ideas of what they could call it. When I said Zionist Front, Tzipi Livni's husband, who is an advertising person, stopped me and he said, "That sounds great. Go with Zionist Front," which to me sounded a little bit like Mussolini. So we ended up still saying more names. But Herzog got impatient. He said, "Forget it. We'll just call it Zionist Camp." And I said, "You can't do that. Zionist Camp belongs in the Catskills. It belongs in the Poconos. It belongs in Wisconsin." And then he said, "Fine, what are more names?" And I gave him more ideas. Then he got impatient again and said, "Forget it, Zionist Camp." And then I grabbed him by the shoulders and I said, "Bougie," which was his nickname, "you can't call it Zionist Camp. Zionist Camp is where American Jewish teens go to lose their virginity in the summer." And he says to me, "Good, then they'll have good memories of that." And I said, "You know what? What sounds best is Zionist Union," and that is how they got their name. That worked better than in 2013 when Tzipi Livni decided to call her party Hatnua Bereshut Tzipi Livni, which means the movement led by Tzipi Livni. And the following day, she came to the Jerusalem Post Diplomatic Conference in Herzliya to speak, And I spoke to her there, and I said, what are you calling your name in English? Will it be The Movement? Will it be called Hatnua, Hatnua? And then she looks at me very seriously, and she says, De Tzipi Livni Party, like Seinfeld or Cosby. This is the Tzipi Livni Party, just like Seinfeld and Cosby. Cosby did not have as negative a reputation back then as he does now. And so I started writing it and stuff, and hoping that people would follow suit. It did not happen. Her party became known as just Hatnua, which looked a little funny. And that leads me to another story. I want to share with you a nice quote that I received from a senior politician. When Ehud Barak originally formed his party a few weeks ago, he decided to call it the Israel Democratic Party, and it later merged, of course, with Meretz and with Stav Shafir to form the Democratic Union. I asked for responses from a politician, and a politician who shall currently remain nameless because it was said to me off the record, said to me, "What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet." He asked me, do I know where it's coming from? I said, Shakespeare, ? Romeo, ? He wrote me back, you are an educated man, my friend, but actually it's Juliet. And this politician, who shall currently remain nameless, then said, and this party will have the same end as Juliet. Ooh. We all know that Juliet ended up committing suicide. That was a few weeks ago. That party currently seems like it's doing okay in the polls, but there's a lot of time between September 17th and now, so you never know. Stay with us, ladies and gentlemen. After the break, we will be dealing with something that has absolutely nothing to do with politics.
This week on the Yishai Fleischer Show, a pro-Israel Saudi Arabian blogger gets harassed on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem.
The real truth is he's a proxy for anti-Israel hate. The fight, most vehemently, is against Arabs who want to normalize relations with the Jews. That's who the most dangerous person is.
For the full show, download the Yishai Fleischer Show on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.
Hello, and we are back here on Inside Israel today on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com, where I promised before the break that the second half of the show will be about something totally unrelated to politics. And maybe I was wrong, because I'm here to talk about a movie that I saw this weekend, and maybe there is some politics involved after all. The movie that I saw was called The Lion King. It was a movie that was a remake of a cartoon that was done rather well, with plenty of real-life animals and everything, and that's what people have been talking about, the special effects. Though I saw it from very different eyes from the movie theater here in Jerusalem, because a couple weeks before, we read in the Torah portion of the week that the Jewish people are compared to a lion. Hen am kilavi yakum v'chari nasa. Behold, a people that rises like a lioness and raises itself like a lion. And Jerusalem itself has been compared to a lion, being in the territory of Judah, who himself was compared to a lion in Jacob's blessing. And so we are here in Jerusalem. The motto of Jerusalem, the banner, has a lion. And there's a lot of lion images here. When they started having statues of animals in cities all over the world. I'm from Chicago. They had cows. And so here in Jerusalem, many years ago, they had statues of lions that were painted in very different ways that were put all over the city, and that was really cool. And then they were auctioned off for charity. And so I am in the city of the lion, and I am a member of the people of the lion. And I saw this movie as being a very Zionist movie, ladies and gentlemen. After all, what happens in this movie? So you have this era of being led by a good leader. Mufasa, teaches his son things and everything that I'm sure happened when King David taught his son, King Solomon. Then you had some bad people in charge. You had bad kings like Scar in charge over here. And then there was an exile. Simba had to go out into exile under circumstances that were very sad. The Jewish people went into exile around the world under circumstances that were very sad. We went to all kinds of places. Some were pretty, like Simba did, and some weren't so pretty. We had to deal with a lot of warthogs when we went out into that exile, and don't exactly remember what animal Timon was supposed to be. There were a lot of Pumbas that were there in these lands of exile, and we might have felt very comfortable there, the same way that Simba felt comfortable in his exile, maybe a little too comfortable, singing songs like Hakuna Matata and other songs about no worries wherever people were. But sure enough, wherever we were in exile, we had plenty of worries. It was no Hakuna Matata. There were problems everywhere we went, and in the end, we were always different. It was clear that we belonged in the land of Israel, which is our home and our pride lands over here. There were visionaries out there who were trying to remember where we were supposed to be. We weren't led here by a monkey named Rafiki, though Rafiki, it would be in Hebrew probably a nickname for somebody named Raphael, which would mean an angel's name of the healing coming from God. And so I think it's very appropriate that an animal being the healing coming from God ends up guiding back from exile. And the Jewish people didn't automatically get to come back. They had to fight the scars that were left behind. They had to get their land back little by little, fighting people off and emerging victorious militarily, even though the land belongs to us. And so we came back here to this land, and what did we do? We made the desert bloom again. During the time that Scar was in charge, the land did not look too good. If you read Innocents Abroad from Mark Twain, it was barren land, and the Jewish people really did come back and make the desert bloom in a beautiful kind of way, and not only agriculturally, but we built up a nice high-tech economy over here. Israelis invented some of the technology that is in the cell phones that people use around the world. I don't believe they invented the SIM card, but those cell phones nowadays, they do have SIM cards in them, and the word for coming in Hebrew is ba. So Simba, we came here to this land created this land, the state of cell phones, and so Simba feels correct in being a part of the redemption of the land for the Jewish people in Zionism. But who was the one who really persuaded the Jews to come here? The person whose role is much stronger in the new, I guess I'm spoiling this, live action version of The Lion King than it was in the cartoon. That is the character of Nala, spelled in Hebrew Nun Ein Lamed Hey, Na'aleh. Rise up here back to the land. I think it's no coincidence that she had a name. She was the one who persuaded, sort of, Rafiki also did, who persuaded Simba that this is where you have to be. And that message is out there to Jews around the world right now. Na'aleh. We will all rise up together to go back to this land. And we are here to stay this time. The Lions, we're not going anywhere. We're dealing with the challenges. We're dealing with all the problems that there are in building a society here. And we're raising families here, and raising families here, that is all part of what is referred to in Hebrew as ma'agal hachayim, the circle of life. And I think it's very special to be a part of that circle of life here in the land of the Jewish people compared to a lion. And so that kind of leads us back to politics, because we are deciding now which lion is going to be ruling this land. Will it continue to be Netanyahu, or will it be one of his competitors who are probably singing right now in the shower as we speak, "I just can't wait to be a king"? So I like The Lion King a lot. Can you feel that love tonight? And I love the Jewish people, and I'm a proud Zionist. And so I encourage you to go watch this film, and to watch it from a Jerusalem perspective, from a Zionist perspective. And I think you'll appreciate the movie even more. Thank you for being with us here from Jerusalem on Inside Israel Today, on the Land of Israel Network, on thelandofisrael.com.